Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds. So this is where I like to collect together all the different things that I've purchased over the past week and run through it with you. Of course, I get it from different places like my local record store, but also online retail like Amazon, eBay, and more. Got 8 CDs and 1 record to run through with you today. But before we get into all of that, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you too will be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this with an episode of New Music Finds. So as we always do, we kick off with brand new releases. I only picked up 2 of them this week. There was a lot that came out for the November 11th release day. One of the big major ones was the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion box set and reissues, of which I opted not to pick any of those up. I'm not a big fan of live albums, as many of you know. All the bonus content on the box sets was live material, and while very good live material and very interesting in nature, I just didn't want to shell out for the box sets to get it. And the 2 CD editions of the Use Your Illusion reissues were each $30, $29.99 give or take. And I just didn't feel that for the live tracks added to the second discs that I wanted to jump into that. So that's why you're not hearing about any of that here, despite me being a big Guns N' Roses fan. So what I did pick up was the brand new Bruce Springsteen, Only the Strong Survive. And this album here, if you're not familiar with it already, is that it's all cover songs, soul, R&B, that sort of stuff. And my initial reaction when I first found out that Bruce was doing a covers album was sort of, not too interested in that, because Bruce is known for his storytelling and his songwriting. And that's what I love about him, not just his voice and that sort of stuff, but actually the style and the way that he writes the songs and so forth. So the idea of doing covers didn't really appeal to me. I have to say though, once hearing this album here, he did a really good job on these. He chose songs that weren't the big, huge, popular ones, at least not what I would know. So I'm listening to these and don't really know them in terms of other artists performing them, and so it made it easier, at least for me, to accept these as Bruce Springsteen done versions or songs. But he was able to put a good, spin or twist on each one of these, making it sound like a Bruce Springsteen song. So in the end of the day, I have to say I'm very happy with this release. I'm pleasantly surprised. I've listened to it a number of times already, and so it's not just one of those albums that I'm listening to simply because it's Bruce Springsteen. It has now become an album that I think is good in its own right. So if you're a little bit on the fence about picking this thing up, I do recommend checking it out, especially if you are a Bruce Springsteen fan. And if you're a fan of soul and R&B music, you may also want to check it out, because I understand from that perspective too, it's a very cool collection. Now here's another one that I'm normally super duper excited about, but my interest has kind of waned in this band over the last few years because of lineup changes and things, and so I wasn't too sure about this one either. Enough's Enough, Finer Than Sin, brand new studio album. Only original member left, Chip's Enough in here. Donnie V, the original frontman, is not currently part of the band, although he does guest occasionally or do things, but they've not had any sort of reunion for quite some time at this point. This is the 3rd album of new material that Chip's Enough is fronting the band. But I have to say, with each release, it has gotten better and better. And this one here is one I've been putting back on time and time again since picking it up. So pleasantly surprised by this album here. It opens with an instrumental rocker called Soundcheck, which is really cool, right into the first single, Catastrophe, which is great. And from there, it just keeps going. In fact, my only complaint on this album is that track number 9, God Save the Queen, is sung with the sort of fake British accent to mimic Johnny Rotten doing it. And I don't know, man, it just doesn't do it for me. And then it ends with a track 10 called Reprise on here, which is just a little snippet of something earlier. So in all, there's really only 8 new tracks as part of this. Don't let that stop you though. It is a really good album. And for those of you, again, that have been on the fence and not really into it because Donnie V wasn't part of it, check out this one here if you're looking for something that's got a bit more classic sound to that Enough's Enough style. I'm very happy with this and pleasantly surprised. All right, then I ordered something off of eBay. Well, actually a couple things this past week, but we're going to get to the first one here. Cinderella Live Train to Heartbreak Station. If you guys watched in last week's when I kind of brought the episode back, what's that you're listening to? Very much into glam metal and listening to Cinderella. So I wanted something else and I didn't have in my collection, and this I think is the only thing. So I finally tracked down a really decent priced version. I think this was maybe 10 bucks. You know, and when it's decent price, it also still has to be virtually pristine copy, you know, and so forth. So finding one that's good price and in great condition is always hard to do with a lot of these old albums. This was a Japanese only EP with 6 tracks on it, all live versions, but very, very good. So yeah, added that to the collection, enjoyed that. And, you know, I film a lot of stuff at Sound Exchange, but I'm also running down there just, you know, as a music fan too. So it's not always just related to me going down to film and things like that, because it's still currently my favorite music store. They've always got cool stuff going on. And so I picked up 4 things when I was there, and stuff that some of it I had seen recently, and other things relate to stuff that I've purchased just recently, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the albums from Dare, and this one here, which is called Beneath the Shining Water. So 2004, I think, release date on this album here. Darren Wharton, having played with Thin Lizzy and so forth. Just a good album. It was just one of those things where I've got a couple albums by Dare, and I was looking for some stuff and wasn't specifically hunting anything out. Came across this here and thought, hey, let me give it a shot. Now, I like to put on the headphones and check things out in advance. So I did check that out, and it just sort of grabbed me and picked that up. Big Yes fan, so I'm always looking, you know, for different things. Last week, I picked up an album called Esquire, which I thought had Chris Squire more involved in it than he did. He just did some production on it, did some background vocals, things like that. It was actually his wife, or at that point ex-wife, but you know, wife that he'd been married to for, I think, 15 years, and it was her band. But as I said, I'm always looking for other stuff, so I found this, Wakeman with Wakeman. So Rick Wakeman with Oliver Wakeman, his son. Both of them now have actually been in Yes, so it's a double Yes thing, and really, really good. I wasn't too sure of this thing here. I couldn't track any of it down. I couldn't stream any of it. Couldn't find any of it on YouTube. So I listened to another album that they did, Wakeman with Wakeman. I don't know which one came first. I think the other one. And the other one had vocals and stuff. This one here, I believe, is all instrumental. I've only listened to it a couple times, and I don't recall any vocals standing out on it. And when I first listened to it, which was on the car ride home, it just didn't do anything for me. And then I listened to it the next day, and it just clicked. It was so good. So you never know. You know, don't always go off of that first listen with things. This one here, really, really good stuff. So as I mentioned, some of the purchases that I did this past week were based on ones from the previous week. So this was the previous week. Jim Capaldi, Electric Knights, picked that up from Factory Records, looking for a little bit more from him, and found this, a Wounded Bird reissue of One Man Mission, the album from 1984. A lot of cool guests on here: Carlos Santana, Snowy White, Steve Marriott, Simon Kirke from Bad Company, and the list goes on and on. I don't even recognize half those names, but just tons and tons. I'm sure all famous people within the world that Jim Capaldi runs in, or Traffic and that sort of stuff, but just not names that stood out to me. But got that, and definitely dug the 80s. So while Electric Knights was definitely rooted in disco, this is definitely rooted in that mid-80s sound, which I happen to enjoy both of these, so they were perfect. And I knew that going into it. I mean, that's what I was steering clear of, some of that more 70s era sounding stuff that Jim Capaldi has done and so forth, and purchasing these ones that I'm sure were not thought of as popular albums because he had veered off into a style that wasn't his own. But I love that, so that was cool. And in the previous week, I had also gotten in the mail these 2 albums from Vigil of War, which is why I'm wearing the Misfits shirt that shows the She-Demons attacking Jerry Only on it. I talked about that in last week's episode about having seen this band, the She-Demons, that Jerry Only of the Misfits put together. They were due to record an album and never did and kind of fell apart. Alicia Vigil, I finally found her and that she had her own thing. So I also picked up this, Diamonds, which is the front woman for She-Demons, or was, because the band is no more. And I think her name is Priya Panda, if I'm saying that right. And so this was her band. So I've just got another thing to add into that sort of collection of stuff where I'm trying to put together what could have been, you know, and where these women went off to and what they're doing and so forth. That's something I like to do. I love tangents and offshoots and stuff. I mean, that's why I picked up the Jim Capaldi, you know, drummer from Traffic. It's why, you know, another one from last week, I picked up the Tim Bogart, and that leads me into the next one here, which is Masters Brew, the second solo album. So I really enjoyed Progression so much. Not issued on CD, well, neither is this one here. So I ordered this one off of eBay. But then the person selling it did a really crappy thing where they showed a really nice front cover version, called it very good in terms of its quality, and then it arrives and you can see the wear here, and that it's all bent, and it's got some water damage on it, and it's torn up here. It's got this price tag on it. Clearly not what was referenced in the picture. I've sent them notification of all of that with photos, and I'm waiting to hear what they come back with and what they're offering in terms of balancing the scales on the quality of version that I got versus what they advertised. And if they don't make it right, I will escalate it up eBay's chain of command and let eBay handle it. But either way, I'm not standing for that, and never. No one should ever have to stand for that, getting something that is misadvertised. That said, I'm still glad to have this Tim Bogart Masters Brew album that's got a bunch of cool guests on here. We got Carmine Appice, Rick Derringer on here. Just a lot of cool different people guesting with him because, man, Tim had been around the block and so forth, so we knew a lot of great people. And one last thing that I picked up, which kicked off the episode that you had seen that is going down the rabbit hole, Killers Murder One, the Paul Di'Anno band at that time, taking its name from the second Iron Maiden album. And that thing, man, just did it for me. I wasn't expecting it. I was in a whole different mood. In fact, remember, I was listening to glam metal and everything. And I popped this on and it completely changed my direction and what I was listening to. And now I'm down the rabbit hole of Iron Maiden and a whole bunch of other things like that. So I've had a lot of fun over this past week with stuff I was listening to, stuff that I bought, changing around what I was listening to and so forth. And there you go. Those are the 8 CDs and the 1 record that I picked up from this past week. A lot of cool new music finds for myself. And I'm sure you guys have some cool new stuff too. Let me know what that is. But I hope everyone has a great day. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.